We might as well get started. I know we will have a quorum like very shortly of our members. There's been some churn, so I think we'll be good shortly. So Jennifer and Megan, just let me know.
Yep, you're ready. We're live. You can begin whenever you're ready.
All righty. Time is 7:05. Calling to order Conservation and Environment Commission, Town of West Hartford, Monday, December 22nd, 2020, virtual meeting. The public hearing and meeting will be conducted exclusively as a virtual meeting in accordance with the Town Planning and Zoning Commission rules and regulations for the transaction of business and executive orders number 7B and 7I issued by Governor Ned Lamont. The public hearings will be broadcast live on television on West Hartford Community Interactive Comcast Channel 5 and Frontier TV Channel 6098, and stream live on www.whctv.org. So calling to order 7:05, quick roll call here. Matt Masunas present. I see Emily Scott present. Ted Newton present.
Present, yep.
Sean Daly present. I've been informed in advance that Jessica Schaefer-Helmecki may be a few minutes late due to an overlap of another meeting. Same for Mr. Rick Bush, late by approximately 30 minutes due to overlap of another meeting. Covering old business, we've got circulated meeting minutes from November 30th, 2020 meeting. Do I have any comments on that or motions to approve?
I motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Thank you, sir. Is there a second?
Ted Newton, Commissioner, seconding Sean's motion to approve.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? The minutes are approved. Brief updates. 3 days before the holidays, I have none for you. Do any of you have any brief updates that you've come prepared to share during the meeting? Or we could leave it to open discussion afterwards. Emily, I saw your hand.
Thank you, Matt. One of my law school classmates is active in the West Hartford Land Trust, and they've evidently acquired some new property. So, you know, as we kind of do our tour of various stakeholder, you know, town and town stakeholder groups, I thought, you know, it might be fun to hear from them, you know, and see how we can work together.
Absolutely. I spoke with the chair of the West Hartford Land Trust, it might have been a year or so ago, and quite frankly, I forget. They might have presented in front of us since then.
Yeah, a couple years ago.
So we could always reacquaint as different citizens churn in and new members need to know about their important mission. Mm-hmm. So that sounds like a great idea. Thank you for that. Anything else from members? All right. Relatively clean calendar for the agenda today. We've got a presentation that we've invited Bernie Pelletier, representing the West Hartford Clean Energy Commission, to present to us the draft comprehensive energy plan redraft for the town, which has been circulated from Clean Energy Commission, I understand, to a variety of other bodies in town, including this one right here. So we're looking forward to learning some more and opining as you see fit, Mr. Pelletier. So without delay, I'll introduce, shall you go by Mr. Pelletier or Bernie for the course of this meeting, sir?
Please call me Bernie.
All right, Bernie, it's all yours. And screen share as you see fit, too.
All right. Well, thank you to the Conservation and Environment Commission for having me tonight. As Matt said, I know it's before the holidays and nobody wants to waste time, but we have been in the Clean Energy Commission been working on this plan for
Bernie. I'm sorry, Bernie. Let me interrupt you real quick. I caught myself on it this time for the first time by muting myself. But if anyone's doing some active typing as they go, then I'll just ask for them to stay muted too. But thank you for doing the typing. I'll presume that you're helping.
Sorry, taking notes. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. I'll go on mute too. Back to you, Bernie. Thank you.
All right. at least we don't have an echo, which I never know how to get rid of that. So we've been working on this plan for a long time. I think it's reached a level of near doneness, and as Matt indicated, we have sent it to various commissions: the Human Rights Commission, your commission, and the Pedestrian Bicycle Commission, as well as to the town manager, Ben Winograd, and Todd Dumay. And we're hoping obviously to take comments, but at this point, pretty much the Clean Energy Commission has signed off on it. We'll continue to tweak it here and there, but we are looking ultimately for the town council to approve it, as they did with the 2009 energy plan. So for a long time, West Hartford was one of the few towns, perhaps the only town in West Hartford that had a clean energy plan. Since that time, many other towns have followed our example or done their own thing, and at this point, it's clearly time for us to revisit that plan, which is more than a decade old. And so I'm going to screen share, and my intent with this is not to drag you through about 30 different slides, although I'm quite willing to do that because I'm proud of each and every one of them. But I've kind of narrowed it down to 5 that will give you a flavor, and the ending slide we will talk about what it is that we want to do, and we want to talk about that in the context of how we relate to other commissions. Our Clean Energy Commission has its charter is its title. We focus on clean energy. So things like greenhouse gases, things like recycling, as you said, Emily, talking about various conservation lands, water use, that sort of stuff. None of that's really in our charter, but we believe that a lot of what we need to make this energy plan go forward would be more sort of dialogue across our commissions.
And just before we proceed, Bernie, this will be my last question interrupting you. Do you want questions interrupting you, or should all those be saved toward afterward? Do you have a preference?
Matt, I know when questions come in throughout the presentation, it tends to make things longer. I'm happy. I've got 2 hours blocked off. I don't want to mess up your time, but if you play the role of chairman and keep me, don't let me go on too long. I'm happy to take questions as we go along.
Okay, that sounds good.
This is our title page, and it doesn't count as one of the 5 slides that I want to show you. I do want to share this with you because, and I am not the author or the artist behind this. That's Catherine Deviney who put this together. But every time I look at it, it resonates with my soul, and I'm thinking it will with the folks on your commission as well. We want our entire community to be 100% renewable or use clean energy by 2050. As compared to the 2009 plan, this focuses on residents, business, and municipal operations. The 2009 plan focused only on the municipality. So this is a far broader scope, but I think we can all agree on this call that the urgency of the time is that we embrace that far broader scope. So that's one of the 5 slides. One of the reasons that I'm here is this plan includes stuff and it does not include stuff. And I quickly just want to go through the light green box and say we're clearly updating the 2009 plan. We're going to give an update, not tonight, but this plan contains an update to all the things that we said we were going to do. We've done many of them, but not all of them. It is a framework to guide our efforts on the Clean Energy Commission to make progress on getting to 100% clean energy. It is focused on the entire community. So that's all 63,500 of us, about 1,000 plus businesses, and it's focused on the topic of clean energy. One reason I'm here tonight is this plan is not meant to be a sustainability plan, a climate action plan, or a resiliency plan. It's not a technical reference document. It's not an inventory of the town's greenhouse gas emissions, although it's pretty easy for us to take a lot of our energy numbers and turn them into greenhouse gases. And nor is it focused on waste management, recycling, sustainability, food sustainability, open space, which I heard Emily talk about at the top of the meeting, forest management, bicycle or pedestrian infrastructure or safety, water, etc. We do think that in order for us to do what needs to be done, some of those topics are going to need to be touched. And that's kind of why I'm here tonight, is to reach out and solicit your input on this. I'm going to go through a little bit quickly. I'm not going to talk about this other than to say this idea of equity and environmental justice has been thrust upon us in 2020 like perhaps no other year since the 1960s. And that is one of our focuses through this. We focus on it not just for moral reasons, but we also believe that I'll say mathematically, if we can't address all the communities that are in West Hartford, we're not going to be successful. This is 100% of the town, and that automatically calls into questions of equity. Skip through. We have a lovely picture of our mayor on the roof of Town Hall. We have a lot of numbers in this presentation.
Bernie, back up for a second. 2 slides to the mayor's picture.
Yes.
I saw something the other day. Since you're from the Clean Energy Commission, do you want to elucidate for us the Conference of Mayors, right?
Okay.
Not to break up your flow, but it was a recent event that I happened to see.
If indeed you were to break up my flow, you couldn't have done it for a better reason than that. I think it was earlier this week. The mayor, you may not all know this, but there is a group called the Climate Mayors. Essentially, when the U.S. withdrew from the Paris Accord, a lot of the mayors in the United States entered the, not formally, not in some treaty-like fashion, but in spirit entered. And our mayor Cantor was one of those. So there's an active group of mayors throughout the whole country. And this came up very suddenly and was a surprise to us, but there are 2 categories of awards. There is the Large Town Award, which is communities greater than 100,000, and the Small Communities Award, which is, as you would expect, communities that are smaller. And since we're 63,500, we fell into that bucket. Our Mayor Cantor was the winner this year of an award, and she won. The particular project that was submitted and that she spoke to was our virtual net metering program with Thompson, Connecticut, which simply stated is kind of a financial transaction. Essentially, West Hartford has agreed to be the financier of a solar field in Thompson, Connecticut, where they have a lot of land and not too many people, as opposed to here where we don't have that much land and we have a lot of people. And so it's called virtual net metering, and we get credit on our bill for the production that facility provides. And that's an innovative. It's actually, I think the Green Bank was involved, the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection was involved, and West Hartford was one of the first communities to get involved with this. Our community to the east, Hartford, our capital city, is also an off-taker of that program, and they were also mentioned. They got an honorable mention in the large community. But so it was a very exciting day, and I have to tell you, because this is relevant to what you do and to what we do. Our mayor, aside from the fact that she is a rock star, is also really interested and excited in environmental and sustainability matters. And receiving this award, I think, just took her enthusiasm and notched it up a level.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm familiar with virtual net metering policy, but what West Hartford did seem like a slightly different sort of animal around the innovation aspect of that, with having some, not just necessarily a kilowatt hour offtake, but like a financial transaction in terms of the project itself. So a little bit different there. So very cool. I want to be sure to provide the opportunity to make mention of that since we were passing that slide right there.
No, thank you. And if it's okay, Matt, at the end of this, I think Jennifer Evans provided to us a link, and you can, I think it's a YouTube link, so you can sort of speed through it. It's worth mentioning that the large community that won is Pittsburgh. So it's not often that you see Pittsburgh and West Hartford mentioned in the same press release. It just gives you an idea that this was no small thing. Matt, thank you for pausing me there because
Mr. Chairman,
Sounds like Mr. Daly? Yes.
it is. Sean Daly, Commissioner. Is it all right to ask a question or two now, or should we wait till the end?
The presenter has given his own permission, so with that consent, please proceed.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chairman, Sean Daly, Commissioner. So one of the questions that I have is, I noticed that right the very first slide, the mission is to aspire for the entire community to use 100% clean energy by 2050. The question I have is why? What I'm missing. I've read through the presentation slides, and I'm just trying to understand what exactly is the town trying to solve for.
That's a good question, and actually, Matt had your chairman had forwarded to us sort of the comments from your November meeting, and we are definitely viewing. First of all, we view ourselves as this picture of the Earth would suggest. West Hartford is on Earth, and we think that we have a role to play in sort of on a planetary scale. So. Answer one to your question is that we think we have an obligation and a duty to do our part in reducing these greenhouse gas emissions and becoming a clean energy user. Secondly, and I think, and perhaps it's not clear in here, but we think that clean energy, which is really almost always, I think always sustainable energy, is going to become increasingly important. I think as you look at 2020 and our recent years, you're seeing more and more events that tax even EverSource's ability to keep the lights on, keep the power on. Our view of the future is that we become more efficient. We need less power delivered to us. We become more self-sufficient. We make more of our power locally. We deliver it through microgrids so that if part of us goes down, all of us don't go down. So we think that it is, I'll answer you to repeat, we have a moral imperative on a planetary scale, and we also think that it's just good from a survivability standpoint as we go into a more and more dangerous decades.
I have a quick observation. Am I off mute? Yeah. Is my understanding correct that the near totality of scientific literature suggests that to avoid the prospect of runaway climate change, whereby we're taking the biosphere to a different place than where human civilization thrived during the past 10,000 years, that we would need to get to net zero, essentially carbon emissions in terms of changing the atmospheric chemistry of what surrounds us by 30 years out, so that we could bend that curve and therefore pretty much limit the disastrous effects to the lesser disastrous effects. Does that inform, the positioning right here? Is it kind of micro to the macro sense, because there's so much like international, talk about that exact same target? Is that partly what informs this? I'm just speaking from my own familiarity with that side of things.
Mr. Chairman, that certainly is part of what we're thinking. Right now, I think it goes up and down with the seasons, and despite the fact that the pandemic has reduced global carbon emissions substantially, carbon emissions are still enormous, and the CO2 level, I think, is measured on Mauna Loa, which I look at almost every single day, is something like 414 parts per million, and quote, the safe level is 350 parts per million. And to pick up the last part of your comment, we aren't going to reverse that by going to zero, but we are going to eliminate some of the worst effects, which I think could some of the worst effects, which could be really beyond mankind's ability to deal with. Go.
If anyone else looks at weather station data on a daily basis, speak now, or we'll just assume that Bernie's got the lock on that for the sake of this meeting, at least. Please proceed, unless there's other questions.
Thank you for that question. I will say I'm going to write it down. I have a website. It's called CO2 Earth. That there was a recommendation a while ago that we don't sign our name with the date anymore. That we sign when we sign our name, instead of the date, we put the CO2 level on the date that we sent a particular communication out. That's what got me started to go there.
Intriguing. I think there's another question that was flagged. Same originator, Mr. Daly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sean Daly, Commissioner. Another question that I have is what's meant by zero emissions, especially of criteria pollutants? Seemed, as I understood it, the definition seems very narrow. My understanding is the definition of clean energy is zero emissions was more about air emissions, and I'm just wondering, unless I'm wrong, why does your definition not include other environmental harms such as ground contaminants and recycling issues?
Let's see.
Was that aimed at this slide, just for context?
Yeah, we could say it is a little bit aimed at this slide, but it's other slides as well, Mr. Commissioner.
Bernie, you want to take it?
Yeah, so what we meant by clean energy is that it has, as we say here, low or near zero emissions of criteria pollutants. We're really thinking of carbon dioxide, we're thinking of methane, we're thinking of NOx. Basically those, the greenhouse, those emissions which force global warming, that have a global warming potential. So everybody knows about carbon dioxide. Many people don't realize that methane, it's not as prevalent as carbon dioxide, but it pound for pound, molecule for molecule, its global warming potential is somewhere between 20 to 100 times an equivalent amount of carbon dioxide. So that's why we're focusing on those. What we are including in this is wind, of course, solar, as you would expect. We are very open to what we're calling biofuels, and this gets at when you burn a biofuel. Let's take something called bioheat, which is commercially available, B20 it's called, and you can burn it in a car or you can burn it in an oil furnace. It clearly produces carbon dioxide where it's burned, but if you look at the origin of the fuel, it either comes from waste oil, or it comes from an organic source. So let's just pretend that it was soybean, for the sake of the discussion, it was soybeans that produced that oil. Well, let's say those soybeans were grown in 2019, they were turned into oil and burned in 2020. That carbon cycle is very short. The carbon is sucked out in 2019, re-released in 2020, and you can keep doing that kind of forever. So that's we're open to that sort of things. Fuel cells we're open to. Right now they run on natural gas, which is something that's problematic as it exists now. But they don't really want to eat natural gas as a fuel. What they really want is the hydrogen. And so what they basically do, what a fuel cell does, the first thing it does is says, oh, you're giving me natural gas. I'm going to get rid of these other carbon atoms that you've attached onto the thing I really want to eat, namely the hydrogen. I'm going to eat the hydrogen. And so in the future, there's a thing called the hydrogen economy, which I'm going to guess you are all familiar with. We view fuel cells as really being potentially very valuable in the future as the hydrogen economy takes off. Why we didn't go down the path of ground pollution and water pollution, it just I don't really have a very good answer to that. I think it's a bit of a cop-out, I think, but it's sort of outside of our charter, and I think that's one reason I'm here talking to you is I think it is within your charter.
That's a pretty good answer.
Very broad.
Well, Mr. Chairman, a follow-up on that.
Sure.
So the reason why I asked the question, Mr. Chairman, is that it seems like, especially nowadays, there's a lot of articles and research being done that while we're moving, and it seemed like the energy plan for West Hartford is really moving to more electric, and then moving towards, as the speaker had suggested, Mr. Chairman, towards wind power and solar power. We know that there's several issues here. One is that many researchers now are saying that we're going to have a significant issue with recycling solar panels, and that by 2050, there are several articles that suggest by 2050, we could have a bigger problem with recycling solar panels than we do with air quality. Secondly, we know that wind also, recycling wind power is also an issue with the wind turbines, and we also know that it's very challenging in the Northeast to have wind power, as the wind turbines are subject to issues with cold weather. So I'm wondering why that hasn't been included in this energy plan or thought about.
Interesting. So actually that, and you know, my own earlier comment is guilty of this as well. Speaking of out of record items that we've reviewed, but the rest of the council has not reviewed. So feel free to send articles around. Bernie, do you want to take a crack at it?
Yeah.
As you're the emissary from the Clean Energy Commission, you are entitled to take a crack at it if you want.
Yeah, I've heard both of those concerns, and there's a whole list of parallel concerns. The availability of rare earth materials, the sourcing of those from places like the Congo, the availability of lithium. I'm not saying that they're not important, but I would say let's just take solar panels as an example. First, I've been in contact with a recycling facility, so we do have the ability to recycle these. In Europe, when you commission a solar field, a solar installation, you pay a fee up front so that when it's time to retire those panels, they're you know, what we call lust to dust or cradle to grave, whatever term you want to use. There's the ability to recycle that material. So I believe that that's an entirely solvable problem. I would ask you to think about the number of cars that are produced in the United States, whether it's 13 or 14 million, you know, per year, and has been done that way essentially for the better part of half a century. The sheer volume of material there is going to dwarf the sort of the amount of material that's in solar panels, which typically last 25, I'll say 25 years. So there's an existing technology to recycle those, and I don't think it's as big as some articles would suggest. And I think we have plenty of other industrial processes that produce enormous amounts of waste material, and we've managed to recycle those. So it's entirely a solvable problem. I would definitely agree that it is something we should keep our eyes on. And it's not, I would also agree, it's not mentioned in this plan, and that's probably something we should change.
Constructive. Thank you, sirs. Speaking from personal background, my understanding of large-scale offshore wind procurements that most of the Eastern Seaboard is starting to look at, I think decommissioning costs are bid in to their contracts through that on solar power, grid scale solar, or otherwise. I'm not sure off the top of my head. So just adding that 2 cents.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, Matt, but I do know that it's technically possible, and I'll just send the link to you if you want to share it with your commission. I think that would be good.
Sure.
This is excellent, excellent feedback. I would also say that I think my understanding, the state of Connecticut, the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection has commissioned a study by Rebuttal and Associates, that's an engineering firm, and they are looking at how wind power will play into solar power as we go forward, and in particular, like you said, Matt, offshore wind is what they're talking about, and it's fortunate for us, but obviously solar is more plentiful, bountiful in the summer, and wind is more plentiful in the winter. So they're somewhat compatible in the sense that when one goes down, the other goes up.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Actually, that was a great. Sticking on the question that Mr. Daly, I think. One of the so people tend to, when we talk about clean energy, we tend to think about solar panels and wind and fuel cells and things of that sort. This gets to how we're going to do what we're going to do, and the biggest element is not necessarily what we're going to do as much as what we're going to stop doing. If you look at this graphic, you'll see that today's, and it's not to any particular scale, it's illustrative. If you look at today, which is on the left side, you'll see that we have a high level of energy consumption, almost all of it for practical purposes, fossil fuel based energy. The basic approach is to produce more green energy, which we've colored it green, and you can see the production of that ramping up by 2050. But the bigger effect is to reduce the amount of energy that we use. And so our little catchphrase, which everybody needs in this 24-hour news cycle world that we live in, is reduce and then produce. So this is a long topic, but the reduction would happen in the residential sector by insulating houses. Obviously, people at this stage, I'm going to guess everybody here has LED lights. When you redo your appliances, there are typically large savings when you redo whether it be a furnace, air conditioner, desktop stove. Any new appliance is going to be more efficient than a new one. Than an old one, I should say. We want to transition heating and cooling in buildings to more efficient technologies with reduced reliance on fossil fuels. Our two contenders, the first one would be air source heat pumps, which have an efficiency greater than 100%. And you can ask me a question about that if you like. And also to use for when those don't work, and they don't necessarily work all the time in every situation, to use something like a bioheat. I don't know what everybody on this call is driving, but even take your fanciest internal combustion engine car, let's call it a Mercedes or a BMW, they're at best 35% efficient. An electric vehicle is on the order of 80% efficient. What that means is you can drive the same vehicle for the same number of miles with the same driver, just use less energy. So the electrification of transportation and the electrification of heating intrinsically will drive down the energy use. These six things that I'm listing are just basically the broad categories of how we're proposing to do this. We want to promote the responsible development of renewable energy within towns. And by responsible, we mean a couple things. One, we're not looking to turn West Hartford into a giant solar field. It's a beautiful town. We want to preserve the aesthetics. Nor are we looking to have solar fields and solar panels be exclusively the province of well-to-do people like myself who have the means. We're looking to make them equitably available. We are clearly, number 5, we are looking to advocate that our utilities, and our state is actually doing this for us. We just want to be a good supporter of our state, that the utilities green the mix of energy that they supply to us. And I already mentioned that we are going to be inclusive and equitable as we think about this. That was an awful lot of words. Any questions on that? I'll change the.
This material is really dense.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Please proceed.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sean Daly, Commissioner. So one other question I have is, the speaker mentioned that they're looking to reduce, one of the main approaches is to reduce energy. One of the things that we know the commission has recently discussed is that the town council is currently looking at taking up ADUs, accessory dwelling units, which would allow homeowners to add more people to their houses, thus using more energy. Has the Clean Energy Commission taken a look at that and taken a position as to how that could increase energy costs for the town instead of reducing?
Well, let me ask before this meeting is over, or maybe put a link in the chat or something, because no, we have not thought about that at all, and in fact I was not aware of that. I will say that paradoxically, density of population, it tends to be a good thing from an energy standpoint, in the regard that if as is the case with my wife and I, there's 2 of us now that our kids are gone, living in a fairly large house. If there were 5 people here, yes, we would use more energy, but not proportionally more energy. So once, for example, we would heat the house as we do for the 2 of us, the heating cost wouldn't go up by 5 divided by 2. It would go up somewhat, I'm sure. But if that's a phenomenon in our town, no, we have not directly contemplated that.
Mr. Chairman, just as a rebuttal comment to that.
We aren't going to rebut the presenter too many times, so I'll give you 1. How's that?
That's fine. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Mr. Chairman, no, in this situation, it wouldn't be a 4-bedroom house with 2 people in it, adding 3 more. What the ADU is offering is within the same square footage area, adding 2 or adding 1, or in some cases 2 additional families to the same household, or building in an additional structure to the same household. So I don't think that solves, I don't think the response solves for what I'm looking at. All I'm asking is that the Clean Energy Commission should definitely take a look at the ADU proposal and see how that may affect their response to reduction of energy. Thank
That's
you.
intriguing. Yeah, because this is that has come before our commission before as a topic of conversation. So that's an intriguing referral right there that they may want to take a look at that. My own thoughts on the matter, only because I recently saw an example from the transportation space on this having to do with mass transit, and it's pretty similar to what Bernie was saying. The energy it takes to move one person versus put them in a bus and divide by the number of people in there is massively more efficient when you have density. We could make hay about it if there was, a problem with us wanting to stop all construction of new single-family houses or multifamily houses in the jurisdiction of West Hartford, because those would be less efficient, presumably, than doing it through this pattern of an accessory dwelling unit. So different thoughts on the matter, but I like the idea of sending it over to Clean Energy Commission as a possible subject that they might take a look at. Bernie, please proceed.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Newton.
Ted Newton, yeah, just a couple comments.
Sure.
One is I understand where Commissioner Daley is going on this. Certainly there would be more energy used if we had ADUs and therefore an increase in population. But I also understand your point and our presenter's point that density tends to be better from an overall efficiency standpoint. People who live in ADUs have to live somewhere. So if they're not using energy in West Hartford, they're going to be using energy in East Hartford or some other town. So I think those are kind of two competing thoughts to keep in mind. The other thing I just wanted to suggest, considering Commissioner Daley's earlier points on the kind of downstream impact on the race to 100% clean energy. I was not aware of the kind of the long-term recycle costs for some of these things, like wind turbines and solar panels. It certainly makes a lot of sense, and I'm glad he brought that question up. So to our presenter, there were 6 elements of the plan that I think you showed on the previous slide or second to previous slide. I'm just wondering if there shouldn't be another element added to that that might be reflective of those downstream costs. So, there's nothing wrong with an aim to get to 100% clean energy, but at the same time, as much as we would want to take into consideration, for example, element number 6, which was to previous disadvantaged communities. I can't remember the exact language there, and there may not be a way to quantify that. So, and there may not be a way to quantify what the downstream impacts of recycling, let's say a solar panel is going to be, or a wind turbine, because we're not going to know what that cost is going to be 30 years from now. But it still might be a factor that we would want to consider in overall policy making, or at least presented to the policy makers to consider when they're making those types of decisions.
Yeah, so Mr. Newton, I think what you're saying is it would be good for this plan to just call out the fact that we recognize that there are end-of-life costs for these things, and that's a factor that should be thought about. Is that?
Yeah, I was thinking of Commissioner Daley's questions as you were going through these 6 items, and I felt like they're somewhat difficult to quantify at this point in time. If something is 30 years away, who knows what the world is going to be like in 30 years, or what the costs are to properly address in an environmentally responsible way. How we discard a solar panel or wind turbine or whatever the technology of the day is going to be 15 years from now. It's hard to kind of know what that's going to be, and I'm not sure that we can address that in a way that is as clean, if that's the right term to use, as 100% goal of clean energy. But to me, it kind of is similar to ensuring that our solutions are inclusive and equitable. Which is, can we also consider downstream impacts that may not be squarely within the purview of 100% clean energy, but still should be considered as a potential cost of trying to get there.
Definitely. So I would say 2 things. I think we can we can put words in here. Our province is energy, and as we get into things like recycling, we get outside of our little circle. So I would, I am viewing this plan that we're talking about tonight as one Lego, which happens to be the Lego of the commission that I'm working on. You have your commission has a far larger Lego, and I would invite. I'm not trying to pass the buck.
No, I get that.
I'm accepting the comments, but I think if there would be a matching Lego that this could plug into, namely about recycling, I think that would be a good match, and I think that's what we have to do to solve this. We can't. I feel like my group can't stay within our little resolution-based charter that we got from West Hartford. And I'm jumping the gun a little bit here, but we did pass this to Matt Hart and Todd Dumais, as I indicated, and their comment was they appreciate what we've done. I don't know if they were talking to Mr. Daly or Mr. Newton when they made this comment, but they kind of said, well, we're thinking more, is this sustainability? And they're thinking one step up from us, and that's another reason why I think I'm hoping that these two commissions can work together.
A Duplo block to the Lego block, if you will.
It's a good analogy, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Not to, I know you were temporarily skipping ahead, Bernie. Did you have more you were advancing to on the slide deck?
I've got a couple more.
Sure.
Just two more. In fact, on this slide, I just want to talk about the approach, and here I want to talk about the little graphic in the upper right. We really have 4 things that we are thinking about, and in each of those 4 things that we're thinking about, we have 4 ways that we're thinking. How's that? We're thinking about the residential sector, the commercial and industrial sector, which includes the municipality and the school. We're thinking about transportation, and we are thinking about the production of clean energy. And actually, I don't even really know what the term ADU is, but to the extent on the residential side that it involves construction, one of the great things about new construction, if properly done, is it can be orders of magnitude more efficient than old construction. So, for example, before the pandemic, there was a group near Bishop's Corner called Fellowship Housing, which is a low-income facility, and they're talking about building that new to passive house standards, which means that they will use very little energy, and that which they use will be supplied relatively easy by cleaner sources. Or if they need fossil fuel, they'll need much, much less. So residential, commercial, transportation, clean energy. And our 4 key strategies. So there's a town in Branford, which is in southeastern Connecticut. They're chaired by Jamie Cosgrove, who's their first selectman, a very thoughtful first selectman. And his concern is they presented a plan not too dissimilar from this. He said, well, we can't inflict mandates on people. We can't impress burdens on them. And we recognize that. We're a commission largely of volunteers, as are you. I'm sorry. So what can we do? Well, we can be inclusive. We can look for input from our community. We can think about being equitable. In our case, we're trying to reach out to social services in the town. But we can educate and do outreach. We can encourage participation and adoption, and we can advocate for policies and planning. And just to give you an example, in 2013, I had the good fortune, and I think, Matt, you were part of this at that time, to work on the Solarize campaign in West Hartford. It started as an education. This is what solar energy is. This is how it works. This is what net metering is. It then set up a program called Solarize that encouraged the participation and adoption of that technology. And we continue to advocate for favorable policies on clean energy. And I have had the good fortune to work with the GC3, Governor's Council on Climate Change. One of the planks we're trying to bake into that plan this time around is that we, the communities, all 169 of us, should be players at the table. This ought not be a state. The state says it and all of us just do. That's a recipe for a lot of dissatisfaction and political division. It would be better if the state says this is what we would like to do and we want to involve 169 of you in making this happen. So we're trying to be good participants in that. So that's the sort of the very, very high level of how we're going to do what we're going to do. And I want to just now go to this slide, which is there's an awful lot of words. I think, Matt, you used the word dense, and I'm not going to argue. This is a fairly dense piece of PowerPoint that we're all looking at. We have to boil it down to steps, things that we're going to do. So our meeting, which was last night, our Clean Energy Commission meeting, we basically took these 2021, 2022, and the 14 steps under general and the 6 steps under municipal, and we said, how are we going to bring that to fruition? How are we going to start working on this? So these are the things that we are driving forward. Matt, the commission, your commission gave feedback, I think, at a very basic level on number 2, when we say give regular updates to the town council, public works and facilities subcommittee. I think we will update your commission as well. So that was one of the things that you would ask for. Number 3, develop an effective net. I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm happy to talk about any that catches anybody's eye. But number 3, develop an effective network or means of reaching the community on energy issues. To the extent that we don't have the power to mandate, we don't have the power to legislate, we have the power to educate and influence. None of that happens if we can't talk to anybody. So one of our big strategic goals is to enhance our Facebook page, which is Sustainable West Hartford, and to find other ways to do outreach. So we pre-pandemic, we had joined the Chamber of Commerce, and our thought is that this is a big building block. This would be an area where I think potentially there might be some interest on your commission and the other, and pedestrian and bicycle. If people are interested in energy, they're probably interested in conservation and environment. They're probably interested in pedestrian and bicycle. So this would be one I'd be happy to work with other groups on. Rethink our connection with Sustainable West Hartford. That's right now, Sustainable West Hartford, which I think you all know about. We're a bronze community. A lot of the work, the coordination work, is really done in 50 South Main Street by Catherine DeVinny and all the department heads there, and Catherine in particular, and I think the rest of them are looking to find ways to engage the community more broadly, which is very, very much supportive of the 3rd goal, which is develop an effective network means to reaching the commission. I'll just throw it out. Number 6. You know, I just turned 67. I'm not going to be mistaken for a teenager most days. I think one of the challenges we have on these commissions generally is to get a diverse slate of people, and that Age is one of the dimensions of diversity. Gender is another dimension of diversity. Income is another level. And actually, on our case, most recently, we realized that, well, actually, we were told that we're all either, we don't have a representative from the minority party. And that's another form of diversity. And so we're actively looking for members of the minority party to participate. But one thing we think we can do is invite some high school representatives. And we actually had 3 high school students, I think from Hall, who came to us last night and talked about their desire for us to advocate for a climate emergency resolution. And just, I told them I was going to warn you. They're coming your way pretty soon. They're a very engaging group of students, and they've got a wonderful professor. I think Henry Millward is his name. So no matter where you stand on the issue, it's a good topic.
Bernie, are there items on here that you think are?
I'm sorry, I've switched the slides again. There we go.
That you think are particular to be viewed through the lens of conservation and environment. In other words, the ones that go beyond the bounds of clean energy, where you think it's especially pertinent that we might provide input beyond those you've highlighted.
Number 13 is basically that. Explore the desire to create a broader sustainability plan, a climate action plan, a climate resiliency plan, the greenhouse gas inventory, which I said we can produce, but it's not really in our charter. Your charter would encompass that. Ours doesn't directly. We could sort of expand our scope through some sort of manifest destiny sort of trickery, but I would love to work with you on a greenhouse gas inventory, and I know that our town manager is interested in that as well. So it's really not.
How big of a lift is that sort of an undertaking?
Say that again.
How big a lift is that sort of undertaking? Is that like find funding for a consultant, or is that I know you've got, what is it, engineering background, was it, or
yeah, so
something in the numerical sciences, actuarial, right?
Sure,
Did I guess?
Great memory. It's not trivial, and a good part of the work, I'll say the part of energy, the part of greenhouse gas that is associated with energy consumption, we basically have that. The tool that would go to things like agriculture, wastewater, I'll call them the more typical conservation things that I think more squarely fall on your commission, would be encompassed by a tool that's put out by ICLEI, I-C-L-E-I. And we've actually, in another one of my lives, I've had presentations from them, and we could buy a tool. It's not with it. And I think I could run a lot of the numbers that would be needed on that tool. And it's
ICLEI is Local Governments for Sustainability.
Yep, that's
Got it. Okay.
And how they get that out of ICLEI, I'm not sure. They might be very gifted individuals, but in terms of the making up acronyms that are decipherable, that's not their strong point.
Thank you for the clarification, sir.
But that would be a specific thing that I think I would like to work on. It's a natural partner to the analytic work, which I didn't talk about at all, which undergirds the plan that we put forth. And I'll let the town manager speak for himself, but I believe that's something that the town is interested in as well.
Interesting.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sean Daly, Commissioner. So one of the things that I noticed is in here, but not in here, Mr. Chairman, is in the study, is there's talk about clean energy and a need for clean energy as part of the old climate initiative, but also we should assume, right, that there's issues, or one of the reasons here is air quality, which is kind of fragmented in this piece. The issue that I have here, and that I'd like for the Energy Commission to think about, Clean Energy Commission to think about, is Connecticut has some of the strictest air quality standards in the nation, and yet we continue to have one of the poorest air qualities in the nation. In fact, I think the 2019 State of the Air report from the American Lung Association said we ranked 48th out of 50 states as far as our air quality. And former Governor Malloy had stated that even with us moving towards clean energy, that these changes will not help, because over 90% of our air pollution comes from surrounding states such as New York, Massachusetts, some of the Midwest states. So one of the questions I have is, why doesn't the Clean Energy Plan recognize this and have a plan to help the state reduce the clean energy issues with surrounding states, instead of taxing our own residents, which equates to using a thimble to try and bail out the Titanic?
The classic tragedy of the commons economics issue. Bernie, do you want to take a stab at it?
Yeah. First, I don't think this is going to be a tax. I believe that what we're advocating will be economically comparable or better than not doing what we're proposing. So there may be some cases of capital investment where the payback, like I, for example, have purchased my solar in 2013, and it will be 10 years until I get my money back. So I don't view that as a tax. I view that as an investment. But the reason we restricted our scope, let me first of all back up and say that I agree with you that some of the air quality issues, the air blows in from, coal burning in Ohio, and if they're still doing it in New York or Massachusetts, most of our air quality is the fact that it's coming from somewhere else. I think that's the job of DEEP. But however, I would happily sign up and work with DEEP. In fact, and as a matter of fact, I have signed up and I'm working with DEEP on promoting that issue. I just don't think West Hartford standing, Bernie Pelletier versus Mario Cuomo or Governor Cuomo, I'm not going to win, or Governor, DeWine, I'm not going to win. I think, Ned Lamont talking to the governors of those states, I think we have a good chance to make something happen. And one other point, and I'm going beyond your question, but just a little bit. There is a thing about West Hartford. I'm sure all of you are very proud of our community. We have a lot of smart people, like people on this call. We have a lot of resources. And to a certain extent, I think that if we become an icebreaker, we demonstrate that our community can do this, and we can do it in a cost-effective way without taxing or burdening our residents, that will be a powerful message. And so I think with that message, we can go to residents elsewhere and say, it's possible. Don't tell me it's not possible, because we've done it. That's my hope. But I take your point. I think air quality is something that one last point. That's also more directly in this commission's ballpark than it is in our ballpark. So I'm happy to call it out as an issue, but I think it's something that I would like to work with you on from your standpoint.
That was a laudable stab at the collective action problem there, Bernie. Actually, a recent metaphor that I'd never heard before until last week was the cat bell issue, which is all the mice recognize that the local cat would be a lot safer if he was wearing a bell, so they can get away from it. But no single mouse, it's in none of their interest as a single mouse to be the one attaching the bell to the cat, right? So how do you go about doing that? It's analogous to that almost, right? So it requires getting a little crafty, coming up with some co-benefits, and as you say, doing a little more efficiently to demonstrate it to others, I suppose.
If we're at the stage of things where we talk about metaphors, I'll add one that I've heard. We've talked about carrots. People talk about carrots. They talk about sticks. And there's a third that is used when you talk about energy, which is tambourines. And by that I mean you can offer an incentive, which would be a carrot. You can offer a regulation, which would be a stick. Or you can say that Bernie Pelletier has an electric car and he likes it, and he'll let you drive it and demonstrate how well it works. Or you can do what the climate mayors did with our Mayor Cantor and say, look at this little town, the 63,500 person town. Look what they did. Isn't that interesting? That would be a tambourine where you just basically call things out.
I like the metaphor.
I like the cat bell metaphor, so we're even.
All right then. Mr. Daly has a metaphor of his own, or a question.
Yeah, not a question, just a statement. And obviously, one of these days we could have the conversation as to whether or not I think the electric car is more harmful for the environment than the gas guzzler. But that's another conversation for another time.
We'll reserve those 2 hours. I will step out of my chairman role so I could be your counterpoint on that. How's that?
Absolutely. My only comment with my original question is that we don't seem to be focused on fixing the problem. And while I totally agree, Mr. Chairman, with the speaker that this is something for the DEEP to take up, I just would like to see the towns in Connecticut start to fortify and support and have as part of their plans to support the state level in order to push our state government to start to have those strong conversations with our neighboring states. That was the point of the question. Thank you.
Actually, I'm glad you clarified that. One observation I would make, and if here again, I think your commission could get involved in this, is a lot of these numbers exist at a high level and people don't see them. And Matt, you did remember my occupation. I was an actuary. I'm a numbers guy, although never asked me to calculate the tip at a restaurant if we ever go to restaurants again, because that's not a pretty sight. But I think if we were to put together, Mr. Daly raises the point, a West Hartford ozone dashboard or a NOx dashboard or a particular matter, and maybe we publish it in the Current or on our website or in the Patch or something like that, where we localize these numbers so people can see, because all these things are actually invisible, and that's part of the reason that people have so much discord over this. I think we would be doing a service to our community if we said, here are our numbers, and then we just gave our 63,000 residents the information so that they could say, you know what, I'm not happy about this. I'm not happy the fact that it's August and ozone levels are actually amazingly high, and we're an amazingly clean state. So I think there are some things that we can do.
Do you see that tying in easier, or in neither direction, to two of the items that have been discussed in the last hour, which was, number one, kick that up and the state has some sort of a tool or resource that could be dropped down to the municipal level on that and thereby done easier, or the opposite direction, involves students, whether in high school or college, folks who perhaps might have more free time. I don't want to make presumptions, but the ability to participate in taking like an atmospheric air inventory, that sort of thing. Just you don't even have to respond on that. I was just trying to make two different connections there to what I was hearing most recently.
Well, I think involving students, we can teach them numbers by asking them when two trains are going to at different speeds are going to get to their station, or we can give them actual real world problems. And so I'm a big fan of. There's a lot of real world problems. If we can attach an academic aspect to them, let's harness all those brains, and they are indeed the next generation. And as mighty as all our elected officials are, I realize they all need constituent support. And so I think the idea of us being good supporters of the state. So Katie Dykes, who's the commissioner of DEEP, if she could say, she can speak on general principle, but if she was to say, I'm speaking on general principle, by the way, 50 of the towns in Connecticut have voiced a concern to me about air quality, and I have these 50 angry or intelligent and upset people behind me, I think that her voice becomes more powerful. So I think that's a good, if that is what you meant.
I was really opening it up for others to impute their own meaning into my own ambiguous statements, as usual. Is there anything else with regard to a presentation or questions of interest, any other back and forth on this, or is there a key takeaway, Bernie, that you'd want to reiterate or summarize for us once again that you already might have said this hour in terms of things for us to be thinking about as we wrap?
Okay. Thing one I would ask this group in particular to do is let us, I think we've raised several issues where we ought to be working together. I can summarize this and present it to you as a proposal to work together. That's a takeaway. An opportunity for us to engage with each other. At some level, I can't speak for our town manager, but the town government also has to tell us what they all want us to do. But in the meantime, while they're figuring it out, I think we should just work together. So that's thing one. Thing two, I take away the concerns about end of life and recycling, and I think we can add that into the plan. And thing three, I'll just say is that I think we have enormous potential for beneficial change every time we make a capital investment. So I was not familiar with these ADU things, but every time a hammer hits a nail, every time a car is purchased, every time a building is rehabbed, every time an air conditioner is replaced, we have an opportunity to make things better. And that's where I think some of this, that's why I think we can do what we're proposing without a tax and without a lot of intrusive legislation. I think with just education.
Inspirational as always, sir.
You flatterer, you. No, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
That's what we do here. So with that, Bernie, feel free to stick around for any of the rest of this at your own prerogative for this meeting. We don't have too much else other than open discussion on the agenda, possibly strategy and issue identification, which completely dovetails in part with what has just been discussed. It's essentially an open discussion here on any of these matters up to this and, including the past several years on which we've been noodling on this sort of issue of strategy and identification of pertinent issues for the Conservation Environment Commission. Do I have hand raisers who wanted to lean in on that issue, or are we interested in more in digesting what it is we've heard tonight and coming back fresh? I do see a hand, Mr. Daly.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sean Daly, Commissioner. I thought maybe I'd make a motion to table the strategy discussion, which was going to be a more formal discussion that we had where we talked about current state, future state, and the different constraining and motivating factors. Given the fact that we have a light group and it's literally a few days before the Christmas holiday, I'm thinking that maybe it would be best to have everybody call it an evening and take this up in the January meeting.
We'll call it a carry forward. No objections on my end unless others have objections on theirs.
I agree.
All right. The time, did I hear another voice?
No, I was only going to say thank you very much for your time and your indulgence and your excellent questions.
We thank you for the presentation and walkthrough.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Yes, thank you.
And congratulations on putting together such a comprehensive report.
Oh, it's a passion. Thank you, guys. I'll log out. You guys can do your secret handshake.
Thank you for the review and comment opportunity. The time is 8:20. Do we have any motions for adjournment?
So moved.
Emily strikes first. Ted strikes second.
Seconded.
All those approving, aye.
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 And opposed, nay. I hear none. Happy holidays, everybody.
Thanks,
And look forward to seeing you all in January.
Merry Christmas,
Same here.
everyone. Take care.
Merry Christmas. Take care.
Bye-bye.